What's going on, everybody? This is the Read and React show. This is our first broadcast together. I am David Jordan.
Hey, America, I'm Marcus Lorelike.
I am Derrick Henry.
Man, I'm so excited. First things first, I got to welcome Derrick to the show. We've been doing this back and forth. We put out a Facebook post, Instagram Live, trying to find a third person just to kind of even things out because we just weren't it. And so we found our guy. We found the person that's going to make this thing roll, and we're excited, man. Let's kind of talk about how we got here, just because this is I think it's a long time coming for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we have a long history. David and I, we've known each other since high school, and we always talk sports. We talk sports a lot. We like to argue a lot about different topics and everything. And through the pandemic, luckily, we've had this opportunity, blessed to us in order to come onto the show today and share with you all how we feel about what's going on in the sports world.
No, I just got to thank, obviously, David for the opportunity to join this show. Like you guys, I love talking sports. I talk sports 24/7, a little bit more than my wife would like to hope. But I love sports, obviously, and I'm just glad that things are back into the new normal, as they say it. So.
Yeah, it's crazy because we talk about the new normal. Coronavirus had us without sports for was almost 3 or 4 months that we went.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just got hit heavy, everything, baseball, basketball, football. I mean, it's really coming on. I mean, NCAA might even kind of get into it. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we kind of got sports. Never in history have we hadn't been had a chance and had to have playoffs, basketball and hockey, plus football at the same time.
Right.
It's kind of crazy, right?
It's going to be basketball, football, hockey at the NFL all at the same time hitting. I don't know what's going to happen with the MLB. We'll get into that later, but it is going to be a great fall, that's for sure.
I don't know about you guys, but I was watching Quidditch with Harry Potter because there was no sports. So I'm just glad that something's back, and I'm tired of watching grown men playing NBA 2K. It's a great game and all, but I definitely miss the sports. So I'm with you guys.
Hey, horse racing and Korean baseball was getting me through pandemic. So shout out to the Korean Baseball League.
Listen, we're excited that you're here with us. We got some great content coming up for you. We're going to talk NBA in a second. We'll be right back with you. This is Read and React. Welcome back to Read and React. Let's just talk some NBA. So, as we saw this week, we got started with the NBA playoffs. I don't think we can go any other direction. We got to talk Dame.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. I mean, it's Dame time, right? Dame Dollar has been one of the most remarkable players so far in the bubble. He's averaging 37 points per game. I would call him the bubble MVP right now. I mean, it's up for debate. We can debate about it if we want, but I mean, he has 3 60-point games on the season. He's one or two players besides Wilt Chamberlain to do that. This guy is amazing right now. I think he's unstoppable to me. He's unstoppable. He's pulling up from 36 feet out, cash money, you know what I'm saying?
Logo Lillard.
Logo Lillard, there you go. So, I mean, it's a real tough matchup for LeBron and the guards that they have on that team with no Avery Bradley. He's been opted out. So, with no Avery Bradley, I don't know who you put on him defensively to try to slow him down.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, he's definitely my MVP, for the bubble. Obviously, again, you mentioned, his stats, but I think obviously we got to go back to what he said, right? I didn't come here to waste no time. I didn't come here to waste my time. I came here to win and get to the playoffs. For me, I think for the bubble MVP, it was a toss-up between, Devin Booker if the Suns got in, and obviously the Blazers with Damian Lillard. If the Blazers got in, obviously the Blazers got in. So for me, he's been my bubble MVP. I think, a true epitome of putting the team on his back. Almost has like a Kemba-esque, UConn run, if you will, of just, starting where they started off in the seeding, in the standings and finishing where he is off now. And obviously, getting the big game one upset. So he's definitely my MVP for right now.
Yeah, so I got to bring some balance to this thing. I love Lillard. I love what he's doing. I mean, just for some clarity, he scored his going into the playoffs. His last game against the Grizzlies, he had 31 points, 10 assists. First game against the Lakers, he goes 34, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He's on fire. That's, without a doubt, that's undeniable. He's literally willing his team to almost upsetting a number one seed, which would be crazy in itself. But I think we got to take a little bit of a step back. I think Devin Booker was a victim of circumstance here, and he, for me, is my bubble MVP. His team didn't make it, but I mean, granted, what else could he have done? He went 8-0. He literally willed his team to every single win, and it was just a victim of circumstance at the moment. And so for me, bubble MVP will go to Devin Booker, but we're not talking about Devin Booker at the moment. Let's talk Lillard, who he's just on another planet. I don't think we've seen a run like this in a very long time. You know what I mean? And, he's got some guys. The defense really isn't there. Melo's there. They're missing Trevor Ariza. They've got their big man coming back, and, he's played well, but it's been pretty much Dame. And if he can pull this off by upsetting the Lakers in round one, I think that we got to really start considering if Dame's a top point guard in the league.
That's going to be up for discussion. I mean, Steph Curry's not here with us in the bubble right now, so I think he would have a lot to say about that. But, I mean, you bring up a very good point. Dame Lillard is playing otherworldly right now, and it's going to be a sight to see if the 8 seed upsets a 1 seed. I don't know the last time that happened in the NBA, but I do believe that if it happens here, we're going to be talking about Damian Lillard for a long time to come. But one question I wanted to pose to you guys was Dame Lillard, he played 42 minutes the other night against the Lakers. He's finished in the top 10 every year since 2015, 2016 season in minutes per game. Right now he's averaging for the season 37.3 minutes per game. He's been playing otherworldly. He's been willing his team, like you said. Is this sustainable? Will they be able to, in a 7-game series, continue this same effort where he's putting in 42 minutes a game and still putting up 34 points? Or do you see them slowing down against a bigger team like the Lakers, and maybe Dame is having to pick up LeBron or play LeBron now defensively, or LeBron starts picking him up more defensively? Will that put more stress on his game or something like that?
I think for me, obviously, with Dame Lillard, we're talking about someone who's still in his prime. So I think as far as sustainability goes, I think he can definitely keep it up. Obviously, we're looking at CJ McCollum and seeing how his back is going to hold up. I don't know, he's saying it, don't make too much of it. Obviously, it's being reported. But I think for me, it's definitely sustainable just given the fact that he's in his prime right now. And I think he's in a quest, within himself to, try to get himself into superstar level, right? To get him into that, KD, Giannis, Harden, LeBron level, and really be talked about as, one of the top 5 players in the league. So I think he's in a quest to prove that in this bubble.
Yeah, it's tough. Can it be sustained? I don't know, but it's going to have to be if they're going to be able to pull this off against the Lakers.
That's true.
I mean, the Lakers are the number 1 seed, and say what you. I am not a Lakers guy. I am not a LeBron guy. But they're the number 1 seed for a reason, right? And so in order for them to pull this off, Dame's going to have to sustain playing otherworldly. Just because, like we mentioned, McCollum's potential injury, the lack of defense that we've seen, it's not going to happen if Dame doesn't perform. Let's move on a little bit and let's flip the coin. Let's talk about LeBron James and the LA Lakers.
I mean, wow. Right, LeBron again with another wow game, right?
Right.
You want to get into game 1, and I know their stats didn't look very, their win percentage didn't look well coming in out of the 8 games in the bubble, but wow, LeBron put up 16 assists last night. I mean, he's doing everything he can to help this team win. I don't know what it's going to take in order to get it done.
It was a triple-double again so it's not just the 16 assists. We're talking 17 rebounds.
I'm just talking from
We're
a
talking
forward
23
position,
points. And so LeBron, at his age, as many years as he's been in the league, he's killing. But again, does it matter if you don't get the W?
Well, I think obviously, the stats look great, right? The triple-double, the 23 points, the first player in NBA history to have 20 points, 15. For me, I am at a point where the team doesn't have enough playmakers around him, and so I'm looking for LeBron to be more aggressive. I want LeBron, to get maybe 38, 35 to 38, instead of the 23, and obviously get the assist down a little bit because, Obviously, again, KCP and Danny Green. Obviously, Danny Green, had 10 points, but obviously wasn't efficient. There's not enough, playmakers or shot makers around him, and it could just be game one. I'm not overreacting over game one. It could just be the shots didn't fall. But I think for me, I'd like for LeBron to be aggressive. I want to see, game 6 of LeBron when he was in the Celtics and he had that, infamous look. When he had that big game. I'm looking for LeBron to have that. And also I'm looking for AD as well to step up and really contribute and really assert himself in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to harp on there was, as much as we talk about LeBron and his legacy and if he's able to, win the championships that he needs to solidify his resume and all those things. Aside from that, I mean, the help that he has, AD played well in the first half. He put up 21 points, but to end the game with 28 is just not enough from a dominant player. You know what I mean? If you want to, it's good. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of good players in the NBA, but AD is trying to get that max contract. He wants to be that max player and all these things. And you're not putting up max player points. You know what I mean? They need 35 from AD if they want to be serious about winning this championship.
He's a top 5 player at his position. And if you're going to be a top 5 player, you can't go ghost in the second half.
Yeah.
You've got it. You put up 21. You got to put up at least 15 in the second half, especially against the hottest player in the league right now. You can't go ghost.
Yeah. I think one of their biggest issues is also the fact that he doesn't want to commit to being a 5. You know what I mean? He's still trying to be put into the 4 position, but sometimes you got to sacrifice a little bit for the betterment of the team. And right now, they need shooters on the floor. I mean, they've got J.R. Smith, they've got Dion Waiters waiting in the wings. They didn't see significant minutes. You brought these guys in on your team for a reason. They need to get the shots. You know what I mean? I mean, trying to run 2 centers, they got schooled by Hassan Whiteside, and Nurkic. You know what I mean? On the defensive boards, they were just getting out rebounded. So
I think for me, going back to, obviously we're talking about AD, I think you got to look at the situation, right? And late in the fourth quarter, you got to look at Nurkic and Whiteside both have 5 fouls each, right? For me, I'm if I'm LeBron or Frank Vogel, I'm looking at AD, say, hey, go to work, go to work. At the very least, put the pressure on the officials to make the whistle, to make the call. But at the very least, like you guys mentioned, AD is one of the top players in the league, and so I'm looking at the situation and thinking, okay, those guys have 5 fouls. I got to go to work in the paint. So,
speaking of pressure, I'm just going to switch gears for a second. Let's talk Milwaukee Bucks. These the hottest team in the league. They come in to the bubble. Have the best record in the league.
Have the potential MVP.
Potential MVP in the league. Yeah. And you drop a game 1 dud to the Orlando Magic. Are we overreacting? Or what's the deal?
So, I mean, again, kind of back to the Lakers point, I don't want to overreact too much on game 1. However, I do think it's alarming, and if I'm Milwaukee, I'm definitely nervous of what Giannis is going to do next offseason, right? I think this postseason, this bubble is really going to, predicate where he's going to go, whether he's going to stay. I know he can make the most money with Milwaukee, or if he's, potential other suitors that are out there, whether it's Miami or Golden State. But if I'm Milwaukee, and I'm specifically looking at Chris Middleton, say, hey man, you're the Batman, right? You're the person, you need to pick this up. Obviously, they have a lot of great role players. They have a lot of great depth. But I'm definitely nervous if I'm Milwaukee long term.
Man, I mean, now I know out west it's a little different. The 8 seed is the Portland Trailblazers, and they're probably a 4 seed in the East or something like that. But let's put some respect on the Orlando Magic's name, okay? They are an NBA team as well. As much as everybody wants to talk about they're the 8 seed and all these young kids are hungry. And Aaron Gordon. I know they're missing Jonathan Isaacs because of the torn ACL and all that stuff, and we wish him a speedy recovery and hope everything goes well there. But I mean, Markelle Fultz is still an NBA point guard. He was still the first overall pick in the draft. He played well.
That was a mistake.
Mistake if you want. I mean, it took him a little while to find a shot, but it looks like he found it against Milwaukee, and he continues to find it. They're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
So. I mean, let's put some respect on the Orlando Magic's name. They're there for a reason as well. You know what I'm saying? They could have been played out of the bubble, and they continued, out of the playoffs. And in those 8 games, they kept themselves in it. So I want to give some respect to a team that is still an NBA quality team. You know what I'm saying? Caliber team.
I gotta, I'd look at Vucevic, and obviously he's been balling, and for whatever reason, he just kills the Celtics, right? He just, he just has that, those big games, the 20 and 10, the 20 and 15, or whatever the case may be. So obviously, kudos to him for having a big game one. And obviously to your point, Marcus, Magic are, obviously are, an NBA team, right? But they just don't have that superstar talent. They don't have, that go-getter. They don't have, again, a top 10, maybe even top 15, top 20 player, right? And so I think for Milwaukee, you still want to obviously assert yourself, and you've got the number one seed. You've been the number one team, number one team in the NBA, never mind the Eastern Conference. Obviously it would have been nice to show a better showing, but.
Listen, I can't call whether they're a real NBA team or not, but I am not a believer in the Orlando Magic. I am not a believer in Markelle Fultz, even if he did put up 11 or 15, whatever he had last night. I will tell you, I am a believer in the man who should have been the number one pick. Danny Ainge got a steal the way he maneuvered and took Jason Tatum in that draft. And now we're looking at Jason Tatum leading the Celtics as they take on the Philadelphia 76ers in what might be one of the toughest first-round matchups for any team in the NBA.
Yeah, I think the Celtics, they caught a break with the kangaroo there, the point guard for Philadelphia, Ben Simmons being out. And he, if he were playing, it would be a totally different game. But I think right now, especially the way Jason Tatum has evolved towards the end of the year and now with the 8 games in the bubble, and then, his game one game, I think you're just seeing the maturity level in him, rising above and expanding his game and turning into the man in Boston right now. I know they've got Kemba. Let's not forget about Kemba, who is an all-star point guard. And, Jaylen Brown is starting to flourish as well. But Tatum is the man there. And it's going to be hard to beat these guys if he's on point the way he has been.
Yeah, I think obviously Tatum's been fantastic. I got to admit, I kind of sort of gave up on, Jaylen Brown early. He just seemed like another Jeff Green, Rudy Gay, just super athletic, but just didn't develop the shot. And I'm so glad that he obviously took that jump this year. Didn't make the All-Star, definitely worthy of it, but I definitely got to give my props, obviously, to Jaylen Brown as well, just being a great sort of two-man, if you will, to Jason Tatum.
Yeah, it'll be interesting watching how the Celtics, they just lost Hayward. He's going to be out for about 4 weeks. Right. We'll see if they can make it through this first round, maybe even the second round, and they can get him back. But this team's going to rely heavily on, as we said, Kemba, as we said, Jaylen, but definitely Jason to get him through this league. I'm so glad we could get through this NBA. We can talk this for days, but we got to jump to a few other topics. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to you. This is Read and React. Welcome back to Read and React. This segment is sponsored by In Focus Entertainment. We're going to talk a little NFL. So, football's back somewhat.
In a way.
In a way. We gotta, we don't get any preseason games, but I guess it's a blessing if we can actually kind of get some games. Hot topic. We're here in New England. We got to talk about it. Tom Brady leaves. In comes Cam. What's your thoughts?
So, I would have loved, obviously, personally speaking, to have Tom Brady here, finish out his career with New England. But obviously, Bill Belichick, his mantra, no one person is bigger than the team. Rather get rid of a player 1 year early than a year too late. You would have hoped maybe, Tom Brady would have been that one exception, right? He won you 6 Super Bowls. You played in 9. You would hope he would be that exception. But obviously, it's just, I think for Bill Belichick, it's business as usual, right? It's just, trying to plug away and trying to have a productive season. I think he has a personal goal of trying to have the most wins, rather for, the most wins for a head coach. And so I think, for him to get, Cam Newton at the price that he got, I think he has a clear message of, we're still going to be competitive. We're still trying to compete for the AFC East, and we're still trying to get some wins. So, again, obviously, personally, it would have been, nice to obviously have, Tom Brady finish out his career. But, I think it's just business as usual for Bill Belichick.
Yeah, in New England, it's always the next man up mentality, right? So, in the offseason, at the start of the offseason, we were all sitting here thinking, Jarrett Stidham, you're going to be the next man up. And we were fine with that here in New England. At least I was anyway, because I would have liked to see, him grow and see what he had. But then we went and signed Cam Newton, which I also was not against. I think Cam is a phenomenal player. I think he's a former league MVP. He's played very well in this, to get his team to the Super Bowl before. You know what I'm saying? So this is a player that will change the dynamic of your team in some aspect, because now he can do some things, like he said. You can be able to call some things you weren't able to call before now, Josh McDaniels.
Hello.
Okay? So, and the league's evolving, right? We see a lot more RPOs and things like that, and I think it's a lot harder to do that with a player like Tom Brady than it will be with Cam, and you'll get to see the creativity come back out, right? I mean, we're always here excited in New England because Josh McDaniels, although he may not be the greatest offensive coordinator of all time, and he's made some very questionable calls, we do love to see the creativity, right, at the start of his career and the start of Tom Brady's career with a lot of the other dual players that they have on their team. I know they appreciate players that are able to do multiple things versus just one-dimensional players. So I think Cam Newton will be a great fit here in New England, as much as everybody says, oh, he might clash with Belichick and things like that. I think it will be a very good mix. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on Cam in a second, but I got to get something off my chest. As a Patriots fan, as somebody that grew up as a Brady fan,
Yeah.
you know, how much does it kind of irk you to kind of see how things have changed, at least as far as how he's approaching football now? I think over the last couple of years, we saw a Tom Brady who wasn't interested in doing OTAs, wasn't interested in going and working with the rookies and kind of helping them bring along.
Right.
And he goes down, and I'm not sure what the relationship was between him and Belichick or him in the front office, but we're now seeing almost like a re-energized Tom Brady. On the flip side, he goes in, and this is a direct quote, you know, he said, we're trying to learn a bunch of different things, and you're trying to not only learn an offense, but learn your way to work or learn guys' names. This is something that he held against the rookies last year, who he didn't get on the same page with, after we brought in receivers who he wanted. And so it's a little aggravating to me now to see him he goes into Tampa, he gets Gronk to come out of retirement. It's almost like, I don't want to say he's spitting in our faces, but it's kind of like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's do we have a right to feel kind of a certain way against Tom Brady as Patriots fans?
Well, I think for me, you know, obviously, you know, again, you got to look at, again, he won 6 Super Bowls. We've been to, you know, we played in 9. I mean, there are teams who haven't even sniffed the Super Bowl, right? So I think we got to look at it in perspective. I think for me, with Tom Brady, it is frustrating, but I think we also got to look at the contract situation, right? I think, you know, year in, year out, the last, you know, 3 or 4 years, Belichick has been a prove it deal, you know, one year deals and things like that. And even after winning the MVP in 2017, you know, still didn't commit. I think we're sort of seeing, you know, what a commitment from a team looks like, and it motivates Tom, right? I mean, obviously the Bucs, you know, dished out some pretty big money. Obviously not top tier, but, you know, obviously the money, guaranteed money, is what he was looking for. And so I think that's sort of the correlation, right? If you commit to me, I'll commit to you. And I think we're seeing that, you know, obviously him with, you know, Tampa Bay. Obviously, we'd love to see it here with Bill Belichick, but I think that's what we're really seeing. It's just a commitment between the team and Tom Brady.
Yeah, and I think, you know, some of the reports that came out was that Tom Brady had one foot out the door anyway, that he knew at the start of last season that he was going to be gone. And so if he knew that from the start of the season, in the offseason last year, how vested was he going to be in this season? I mean, I know Tom is a competitor. What they always talk about, how he's one of the ultimate competitors, right? He'll try to beat you in a race to the door if he can. But he was already out of the building, you know what I mean? So I didn't really expect, now that I found that out, I can see why the season turned out the way it did. And yes, it's disheartening as a fan, but I'm glad to get that, as some people might call it, a cancerous situation out of the locker room, right? Because you've got a quarterback who's not really vested in the rookies, who doesn't want to work with these guys, and it's holding us back. And so if we can continue to just move on without him and keep the show rolling, I mean, he is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but if he doesn't want to, that's still up for debate.
He's the greatest.
But if he's not, you know, vested here, then let him go somewhere where he'll be happy. And I think one of the things that Joe Montana had said was that Tom Brady told him exactly why he wasn't staying here in New England. It was because he didn't have control over personnel and some of the in-game situations and things like that. And he's still a player. And I know some of these superstars players,
Soft.
they want control and they want to be able to have say in things like that. But coaches coach and players play.
There's a
And
reason
we
why
went out
we
and got
win.
who you wanted.
There's a reason why we won. There's a reason why we've had a winning formula. And so part of that, a large part of that, is Tom Brady. But we also need to keep in mind what Belichick and what the front office and what they've done, even if he doesn't like it, it's been a recipe for success. And
Patriot
so
way.
if you want to come in and start changing those things, I can see why there would be a divide. And they say it's time for you to go because we're interested in winning. And if you don't want to come in, you don't want to do OTAs, but you want to be in charge of front office moves,
Right.
it's not going to work. But we do have to switch subjects just because we only have a couple minutes left in the segment. We got to talk Cam. And, you know, just as one great quarterback comes in, we've got a future or a previous league MVP coming in who's looking to prove something, but he's sharing snaps with the likes of Brian Hoyer and Jared Stidham. I mean, where are we at?
So I think that's Bill Belichick mind tricks, right? The Bill Belichicks, if you will. But we got to look at the contract, right? It wasn't fully guaranteed. It wasn't really big money, so it wasn't a real serious commitment. I think we got to look at the contracts, right? The contracts are going to sort of determine what the value the player has to a team. And so I think Bill Belichick realized hey, no one's really picking up this guy. We can get this guy on the cheap, bring him in. We're maybe not 100% fully behind Stidham yet, and we're not in love with his development. So let's bring in a guy that can really, challenge him in the QB room, that can really challenge him on the field, and really put some pressure on him and let them know that, hey, this job isn't yours, right? You have to work for it. And so obviously you have someone who is motivated to win. You have Belichick, who's obviously motivated to win. And I think it's just obviously a perfect marriage. I think it'll work out. And I think with Cam, he sees the contract, right? He sees that, again, it's not fully guaranteed. It's not big money. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to come in and learn as much as I can and, get Josh McDaniels to call some plays that'll really suit my style and go from there. Hello. Exactly. So I think we just got to look at the contract and just see that this is going to be a competition. No one man is going to win this in the preseason.
I'm kind of with Belichick on this one. Let him share snaps with Hoyer and Stidham and let him prove to me that he's still that MVP.
Prove what?
Prove that he's still able to do the things that we expect him to be able to do. I mean, he posted on Instagram that learning the New England playbook was like learning calculus. So if that's the case, I mean, calculus isn't very easy to pick up right away. So if he needs to learn some things and take his time, I just don't know how much time he has on a one-year deal. You know what I'm saying?
I think that so there's a couple things in that. I think one, that even the comment about calculus, Edelman told him it was calculus. He never said I can't learn calculus, but of course he's gonna have to pick it up.
Not easy. It's
That's
hard.
fine.
That's my point.
But let's be realistic here. Brian Hoyer is not who you want as your starting QB.
Oh no.
And so we're really looking at a two-person competition between Stidham and Cam Newton because you either want your quarterback of the future in Stidham or the quarterback for right now, who's going to be Cam Newton. Hoyer's really just an insurance guy who knows the playbook. At the end of the day, we know that Cam can be a game changer for New England.
Right.
He just has to pick up the playbook. I think if you look at some of the way they've marketed him, none of the other signings have gotten as many posts as Cam Newton has.
Right.
And I think that it's one of those things where we just have to be patient with them. But we may even start to change how the playbook looks to make sure that Cam's ready to go for week 1. And we're going to see a different Patriots team. We're going to see I'm not a Josh McDaniels fan, but if he feels like he can have Tom Brady of all people go out for a QB throwback pass, then he can definitely do it with Cam Newton. Right. I don't suggest it, but I guess time will tell where we end with them. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Read and React. We're going to stick with football, but we're going to go college. Let's talk NCAA.
So, I don't know how you all feel, but personally, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I love college football. I'm a huge college football advocate. I know there's 100+ teams, but I love when Saturdays hit and, you're just getting the most out of all these players that are trying to make it to the league. They're not holding anything back and things like that. But, you've got two leagues in the Power 5 that are saying they're not going to hold any games in the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. And you've got the rest of these leagues, the SEC, the ACC, and so on, saying that they're going to continue to play these games. I don't know at what point it turns into safety for the children. You know what I'm saying? With the safety of the athletes and the students and their families and stuff like that, because they're not playing inside of a bubble like the NBA. They're not quarantining and doing those types of things before they get to the team like the NBA. And I just don't see how they could continue. I mean, Oklahoma just had to shut down practice because they had 9 positive COVID tests, okay? So if that's the week before the Red River Showdown against Texas and you have to shut down practice, are you prepared for that game? And then are your players prepared to not be injured in that game because they've had adequate time to practice and those types of things? I don't agree with the whole thing, and I know that financially a lot of these schools depend on it, but I think they're going to have to figure out another avenue.
Yeah, I think, for me, obviously, like you, Marcus, I'm definitely a big fan of college football. I think we got to look at, money talks, right? And, there was a quote, saying that if LSU does not play, that's $80 million out of the school. $80 million, guys. I mean, think of, how that's allocated to the other teams and, how that's allocated to different towns and things like that of how the university runs. And so I think we got to look at it like, man, that's a lot of money to lose, right? And so I think, if you can get it structured, right, if you can sort of make the campus, like a bubble-like atmosphere. And I think for me, I think we got to dispel the theory of, student athletes. These guys are semi-pro, right? Can we just all agree here? I mean, or maybe not. I think, I know it's difficult, right? I know we got Title IX, and we have to, obviously spread the money around. But I mean, if we look at the value, like I said, $80 million, that's lost at a university. I really think we have to, obviously, I think we have to, decide that these are or amateurs or semi-pro, whatever you want to call them, and really just and let them know that this sport, this college football, is really important for the university going forward. And so I think if you can sort of if you can make it like a bubble-like atmosphere, and maybe add some waivers in and saying obviously if you go outside or if you're hanging out at after a certain time, or if you leave the bubble or whatever, and so you're responsible for the COVID-19 or anything like that. I think we can put that in place and sort of make it structured. I mean, this is a really big industry. NCAA, it's probably the third or fourth high ranking or revenue rather industry, and so I think there's ways to go about it and make the campus a bubble-like atmosphere.
So one of the things I want to touch on, that a key point that you made, was that you said LSU is standing to lose about $80 million in revenue. For me, what I heard was our football players are worth $80 million. And that's when my biggest issue comes in as we start to talk about what these student athletes are putting on the line to be able to come back and play football. I want to see college football because I'm an avid football fan. This is what I grew up. That's my passion. That's my love. But we have to start to consider, what's at risk for these students. Yeah. And if you're saying that at one program individually can make $80 million, we need to make sure that if these kids are putting their health and risking themselves, and they're putting themselves out there and putting themselves on the line so that we can get a quality product, we've got to start taking care of them. And I think that lends itself to the conversation of why aren't our student athletes being paid? Why can a school like LSU make $80 million and the athletes who are making this money for them, they don't have any access to that money that's coming in? I think outside of scholarships, we've got to start paying for them so that they don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have to go back and ask for gifts from mom or dad, or worry about some agent trying to lure them away and giving them extra funds. I know this is an entirely different conversation than what we kind of dealt with in regards to COVID, but I think that it's the perfect time to kind of have that conversation and figure out how we can take care of our student athletes, and at the same time make sure that we're getting college football. At the end of the day, we're looking at, I look at what the Big Ten has done. and they canceled football. The SEC decides that they're still gonna play. ACC still wants to play. And, so now the conversation's going back to the Big Ten where they're talking about we want to do a spring season and we might do 10 games. There are even rumblings that they may even try to figure out some type of 10-game schedule, which the AD from Ohio State came out and said today that wasn't true. But there's always some truth to every rumor that's going on.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes it tough, right? Because, again, for me, it's the safety of the players, right? That's what, to me, is the most important thing, is we need to always be thinking about player safety, especially at the younger ages where they're not professionals, where they're not getting paid for their time and their effort and their blood, sweat, and tears that they're putting into this sport. It makes it very difficult to pay these guys as well because you've got other student athletes, right? How much does the golf team get paid to come be on scholarship here? And I know that the football profits are paying for these other sports to even be able to play and to be able to travel and have team buses and uniforms and all those things. But if you start paying football players, what are you going to pay the basketball players? Kentucky's basketball is way better than their football team. How much the basketball player is going to start getting paid?
I think to get to that point, I think we got to look at who's bringing in the revenue, right? When we talk about sports and things like that, when we talk about teams and who's being paid the most, and we look at salaries, who's bringing the most, right? If you look at, obviously, when you look at football, who's the most important position? The quarterback. What's the highest paid position? Quarterback, right? So I think we can allocate that to college, where we say, football players are bringing in the most money, right? So I don't know how you can do it. I'm not an expert. Maybe give extra grants, each month, something like that. But we got to, we have to face the facts that football brings the most money, and so if they're bringing in the most money, as unfair as it may sound, right? They're the ones who are going to get paid the most, and I think for a golf, someone who's coming in on a golf scholarship, they have to understand and understand the whereabouts of the importance of football and how it's going to fund my season, whether it's golf or soccer or volleyball, whatever the case may be. Whoever's bringing the most revenue, I think it's simple is that's where the money should go.
Well, I don't disagree with that. And if they want to work out how much these players make and that whole thing, then that's a conversation for another day. But again, to get back to the player safety point, you're going to start putting these kids in harm's way if you start talking about a spring season, right? Because they're still going to talk about a fall season. Apparently, they don't want to lose any money. They're not okay with losing any money. So if that's the case, I don't see them just stopping and not running their fall season next year, especially when there could potentially be a vaccine and things could be potentially back to normal as we all know it, right? So what kind of risk are you putting these athletes in now, especially the ones that are going to the NFL, because they're going to be playing a spring season before they get drafted, and now you're going to opt out. Some of those kids might opt out before the draft and things like that, you know what I mean? So I think it makes it very difficult to talk about those things, and they just need to take a step back and try to deal with the situation at foot, and that's the pandemic.
To your point, I don't think there's going to be a spring football season for that reason, right? To get players to really commit and to really play a 10-game season and then go ahead to get prepared for the draft in April, I just don't see it personally.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's a wait and see, but only time will tell. We'll see you guys in a few seconds. Next segment, we're talking Read and React. Here we go. This is the Read and React show, and of course, this is the Read and React segment sponsored by Ears. So, I want to explain what we're doing here for a quick second. I'm going to give everybody a topic. You each have 45 seconds to shed your opinion on it. I read the memo, you react to it, and we get right to it.
Let's go.
Ready to roll?
Absolutely.
All right, we got our timer on the board. Let's talk NBA. Who is your bubble MVP and who is your NBA regular season MVP?
Well, regular season MVP, got to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Greek Freak. Obviously, the records, it is what it is, right? The best record in the league. But I think we also got to look at how efficient he was. Obviously, putting up 30 and 13, putting up numbers that we haven't seen since Shaq. And obviously having, again, the number one seed inside the whole NBA. So for me, it's the Greek Freak for the regular season MVP. For bubble, it's simple. Dame Dollar, they're in the playoffs. Already got the game one upset. He's putting up historic numbers. I think he's at a point where he's is setting himself into superstar level. So.
For me, my regular season MVP is, much as it pains me as a Celtic fan to say it, is LeBron James. He took a team that was very bad last year, not very good even with him on it, and put them in the number one seed in the West. I think that is very difficult to do, especially in the West, and they've been the best team out there all year. So my regular MVP goes to LeBron James. And inside the bubble, man, I think it's very hard to talk about anybody other than Dame Dollar. I think he's been remarkable. I think even after the Clippers mocked him, he showed that it's still Dame time. So I'm going with Damian Lillard.
Yeah, so I've got to agree with Derek on this one. I'm going with Giannis for the regular season MVP. It's very to average 30 and 13 the way 30, 13 and 5 assists actually the way he did it, and it was just dominant. And so it's kind of undeniable. I can't say LeBron for the simple reason, and people want to say he was injured for whatever reason. If he was, he was. If he was taken off the season, he was. I don't know, but his team didn't make the playoffs last year. He waits for a top 5 guy and Anthony Davis to come in, and then they make the playoffs. It's a lot easier to play when you're dealing with when you have somebody like Anthony Davis at your side. So I'm going to go with Giannis. My bubble MVP, even though he's not here, it's Devin Booker. Wet like a book. He absolutely killed it. I mean, it's kind of undeniable what he did. I think we're looking at a great season coming up for him next season. We're going to go next topic, NHL. Who is your favorite to win the Cup?
Even though obviously they don't have their best player in Tuukka Rask, I still got to go with the Bruins. I mean, they had the best season in the regular season, although they didn't start the bubble, if you will, too hot. I still got to go with them. I know Pastrnak is still not playing, but he's still playing at an all-time level. You still have Zdeno Chara, who's sort of the anchor of that defense. You have Brad Marchand, who's quick with the ice, and of course you have Patrice Bergeron with the game winner the other day. So I still got to go with the Bruins. I think they'll sort of rally behind Halak and really fight for him and show that they're bigger than Tuukka Rask.
I'm going to have to echo that and go with the Boston Bruins as well. I mean, they've been the best team all year long, and they're not really showing signs of slowing down. I know they needed to get warmed up here in this new bubble that they're in, but once Pastrnak starts to get going again, you see they've already closed out the series against Carolina. So they're going to be at home. They're waiting right now. They just won 4-1, so they're going to be waiting for their next opponent. They're going to get rested. Even without Tuukka, Tuukka and Halak were the best goalie pairing for the season. So I've got faith in him. And they're a very experienced team, and they know what they're here for. So I'm going with the Bruins.
I want to be a hometown homer. I want to go with my Bees, but I just can't. I think losing Tuukka Rask is going to prove to be an even bigger loss than we're really making it out to be. Pastrnak, who has missed the last 2 games before playing today, not coming in, not in shape. I just feel like their heads aren't in the right place, and so I can't pick them to be my favorites as much as I want them to be right now. With that being said, I got to look over into the Western Conference and really give a shout out to the Vegas Golden Knights, who I think are playing phenomenal hockey right now. And they just went and they won their first round series. They're their top seed, and for an expansion team to be in their second year and to be doing what they're doing, they've got a fire lit under them. And I think that we're going to see them advance into the Stanley Cup and probably walk away with it. Next topic, NFL. Do we make it through the regular season with COVID?
My heart says no. My heart wants to say yes. My head says no. Excuse me. I love football so much, and I feel like there's so many smarter people than me that are making bigger decisions and to understand what's going on with the pandemic and really sort of guarding themselves to not sort of shortening the season or canceling the season. But I think football is just such a tough sport. You can't social distance in football, and if one person gets it, it's quickly spreadable. Obviously, just without social distancing, or rather the lack thereof. But I just don't see it. As much as I'd love to, I don't think so.
So for me, I think the NFL can finish the season if they spend the money that they need to in order to test properly, continuously, because I know that they said they were only going to test for the first 2 weeks every day of the preseason or the before the start of the year, and then they would reevaluate and see how long they were going to test after that. But I think if they can keep up with the testing, and they should, money wise, and they can ensure that the players will stay safe, then they should be okay, unless they get an outbreak and you have one position group wiped out. But for me, as in the great words of Randy Jackson, I'm gonna have to be a no for me, dog.
So I'm going to be the one to say we will make it through this season. And at the end of the day, it comes down to money. Biggest difference between any of these leagues that we're talking about, we talked about college football, the NFL's professionals. They gave everybody their chance to opt out. Whoever wanted to opt out, they did opt out. And I think we're going to get to a point and it pains me to say it, even if there is an outbreak, we might not even hear about it because the NFL is that powerful. The NFL wants their product out. They want football on the field. And right now, they're going to do anything that they can to make sure that they get the revenue that we can from the season. It may not be the season that we're typically used to as far as fans in the stands. They're talking about having crowd noise pumped in. We're not getting preseason games. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to see 16 weeks of football. Our last question is the MLB. In all of its craziness and all of the corona and how things have affected the league so far, there's rumors that they're looking to move to a bubble for the playoff, for their 16 seeds. Does the MLB make it through their season?
I think they do if they incorporate the bubble piece of it, right? And I think we got to look at how leagues are mirroring each other, right? Obviously, NBA has a ton of success right now going on. 0 COVID-19 cases. Same thing with the NHL. And what both things have in common, they're in a bubble. So I think if they can get to a bubble, players understand the severity of the situation and play within that bubble and be professionals and understand what they're signing up for. Yes, I think they can finish the season.
For me, it just doesn't matter. I know they're playing games and things like that, but how vested are these players really in this season with it only being 60 games? The viewership is down in terms of the fans and those things. So even if they make it to a playoff bubble, which I don't think they will personally, I just have seen too many difficulties with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Miami Marlins and things like that, the Phillies, and I just don't see it happening. But if they do and they can get to a bubble, then they might be able to finish it. But for me, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see it happening at all.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the first thing that came to my mind was, who cares? Right. I mean, we're looking, the worst thing that baseball could have done was switch to the 60-game season. They're allowing half the league into the bubble or half the league into the playoffs. Yep. Some of their bigger names have started to opt out. You're now going up against the NFL and the NBA and the NHL as far as viewerships and ratings, and they've completely botched what we've given them for the regular season as so far. Nobody's going to want to go into this bubble. Nobody's going to want to leave their families after they've gone through this 60-game season that they've had. I think you're going to see the Magic Johnson treatment from these players. They said, I'm not going to be there. And that's going to be it. This is the Read and React segment. We got one more coming to you. It's going to be our funnest one yet. We're talking Roy Jones and Mike Tyson next. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Read and React. This is the last segment of the day. This might be our funnest one yet. We're talking some boxing. We're talking legends, OGs in the game. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr.
Mike, baby.
I can't even believe this is actually happening. Somebody give me thoughts.
I'm just surprised of how good of a shape, Mike Tyson has been. I mean, obviously we see, his cameos and Hangover and things like that. So for him to be in the great, looks like in fantastic shape at 53, obviously it is amazing. And, this might not be, the biggest, fight of all time, but I think just given where we're at, what we talked about, obviously the lack of sports and things like that, I'm definitely looking forward to it myself.
Man, I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner. With the way Mike Tyson is hungry, man, this dude's going to eat Roy Jones alive. I mean, Mike Tyson is always the one that's always up for a fight, you know what I'm saying? And I hadn't heard a lot from Mike. I knew he was on his farm. I knew he was growing his cannabis. I knew he was hanging out, relaxing, doing his radio show and things like that. But I'm glad to see him ready to come back. He wants to make a comeback, man. I mean, he might be the first one to advocate for a 60-plus league. We might have some 60-plus boxes out there. Let's go.
Let me tell y'all something. This is nothing more than a money grab.
Hey, money's going
Mike
to charity,
Tyson,
man.
one, he needs money. Roy Jones, he needs money. Mike Tyson's also got a movie coming out soon, so there's promo for that. But let me tell you, last time we saw Tyson in the ring, he was knocked out, got up talking about, my heart's just not in it anymore. This is not, I can't do this one anymore. This is not, I lost my ferociousness. Listen, Tyson does not want in on this fight. What he does want is money. And so we're talking about Roy Jones, who has been fighting some here and there, but it's a money grab. And I as great as these Instagram videos look, I can make a video of me looking like I'm real good in fighting. I don't want to see these two go out like this.
In fact, to your point, to talk about the money grab and all, I mean, they've since pushed the fight back from the September 12th date to November 28th in order to try to have fans attend. I know it's going to be in California, but I heard Mike Tyson was trying to get it at Jerry World, you know, down in Dallas, to try to get as many fans as possible and get it up on the big screen down there. But in terms of the money grab, I mean, Roy Jones' comment today, he's quoted as saying, quote, "You think I'm going to say, okay, let's look at my money, but I'm not going to get a better percent. How dumb is that to me? So let's see what happens." He's worried about the money. This fight might not even happen because they're taking up his time. He's got to move things around in his schedule. So you're right. Money talks.
Hey, I mean, as much as we, like to talk, obviously this is a money grab. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm looking at it at a perspective of, listen, 4 or 5 months ago, I had nothing. I had, again, like I mentioned before, I was watching Quidditch. So I think for me, just to watch something, to have sports back, but. I think it would have been difficult to watch if, let's say if Mike Tyson was facing, the number 1 or 2 contender heavyweight, in the world. I think that would have been, obviously, I don't know, obviously, clearly, you're not that fighter anymore, Mike.
It ain't Iron Mike anymore.
But, I think it's just, it's good fun. It's something to talk about. He as much as, we want to talk about the videos. He still looks like he's in good shape. Roy Jones has fought, a couple fights. It's worth watching. It's nothing crazy. It's not, Floyd Mayweather or Pacquiao or anything like that. But it's just another fight to watch, right? So,
In the words of T.O., get your popcorn ready.
The funny thing is, Roy might have seen these videos. He thought it was a joke. He thought it was a game. And Tyson's kind of like, I haven't hurt nobody in a while. My back's not broken anymore. No more spinal. And you know what I mean? And so now he's out like, I might just try to make a statement with this one. It's kind of scary when you see Tyson. I want to apologize, Tyson. I didn't mean the jokes. Please, I don't want to fight you. Please don't hit me. Don't hit me. Listen, man, I had so much fun today. I'm excited for the season of Read and React. I know we only have a couple seconds. Anybody else got anything they want to say?
No, again, I just want to thank you guys, for giving me the opportunity to join the show. Again, I have these conversations, day in and day out with family and friends, and so it's just great to have a platform to have a conversation with you guys.
And for me, America, I'm just glad you all can see us read and react. You know what I'm saying? We do it on our personal time in the personal spaces, but now we're glad to share it with you all.
Man, we're coming for you. We're coming for you for the top spot. Can't wait to see y'all next week. This is Read and React. We're out.
Take care, America.
Is in us, and we are here to